John McMullen, our 97.3 ESPN Eagles insider. It's 4 o'clock, so obviously it's John McMullen time. I'm going to bring him into the conversation. I'm sure he has just a few things to say. You know, he dropped a bomb on Josh here when we brought him on. He let us know that the Eagles are making the playoffs. So for all you people out there that didn't know, the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be in the 2018 playoffs, despite my funeral arrangements that I set up for them many weeks ago. So that's a good time to bring in John McMullen. John, happy New Year's Eve. I'm sure you got a lot of big plans for tonight. What's going on?
Yeah, Happy New Year. Well, the Eagles kind of ruined my plans.
It's unbelievable. They don't care about anyone.
Don't care about any of us.
No.
But they deserve credit. They did what they had to do and took advantage of a situation where obviously Chicago, I don't know what Chicago was doing, to be perfectly honest, because I think they had an opportunity, and I mentioned this last week, to manipulate the best divisional round matchup, and they didn't do it for whatever reason. Call it swagger, call it confidence, or call it arrogance, but they picked the wrong team. They have a much tougher matchup than what they should have had. Now, maybe they can go out and beat the Eagles, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me what they did.
Why did they do that, John? I mean, do you have any insight or any opinion as to their strategy there? I mean, leading up to the game yesterday, everyone that I talked to, everyone being the casual fan, and even just some people that follow the Bears and the Eagles closely, are saying, yeah, they're not going to try and win this game. Why would they? I mean, maybe the first half, but after that, they should be sitting everyone, and who cares what happens? I mean, what was their thought process yesterday in going out of their way to try and beat that Vikings team?
Well, I can only speculate, but I can tell you from inside that building that there were most of the coaches and executives with the Eagles did not believe Chicago would try to win that game.
Right.
And certainly tap out early, especially considering what happened with the Rams, and it was pretty clear, pretty evident that they were going to win. So once that number two seed was off the table, Eagles expected the Bears to put it in their backups. They didn't. They went on to win the game. There's two schools of thought, and Matt Nagy, who's kind of a new school coach, went old school, and his obvious mentality was go win the football game. We think we're better than Minnesota, which they obviously are. They think they're better than the Eagles, and we'll see if they are. Look, it's you can show confidence, and it's difficult, sort of a hurdle to say to your team, we don't need to win this game. And as a coach, you can't do that. So what you should do is manipulate the outcome by using personnel, taking out the starters. And that way, you don't send a bad signal to your team. You're just saying, look, we're being cautious. We need our starters for the playoffs. And you move on, and you have the better matchup in the divisional round. He went the other route, which is, let's go win every football game, and maybe it works out for him, but I don't like the strategy. And this is a guy who I was voting for Coach of the Year,
wow,
Matt Nagy. I don't know if I'm going to do that now. That's how
wow,
poor of a decision I think that was.
Yeah, I agree completely. And you bring up a good point as far as what type of message that sends to the locker room. I mean, you don't have any insider information regarding this, but you've been around the league long enough, and you've been following the Eagles and the rest of the NFL long enough. How do you think the players reacted to that? Like, is there a chance that there's a couple players in that locker room that are like, man, what is Coach doing? Like, I don't want to face this Eagles team, or this doesn't matter.
No,
Let's rest.
I don't think the players think that way, because players sort of have to play. And I think the best example of that is the Sixers. Nobody knows better about tanking than this city and what the Sixers went through. But no player ever tanked. The worst players the Sixers ever had are trying to win basketball games.
Yeah.
But they manipulated to where they couldn't by not signing good personnel. So that's how you sort of do it. You can't expect the players to say, well, we can't beat the Eagles, we can beat the Vikings. That's not a player's mentality. They think they could beat anybody. If you go to the Arizona Cardinals with the number 1 overall pick, the vast majority of people on that team think they're going to beat the New Orleans Saints on every given week. It's not realistic, but that's just their mentality. So it's a coaching staff decision to again remove personnel and try to set up the best possible situation. And they decided they didn't need it. And we'll see. Maybe they're right. Maybe that defense is so good that they'll go in and dominate the Eagles. But I don't like that matchup as opposed to the matchup they could have had. I think
I agree.
They've created a much more difficult hurdle for themselves.
Yeah, I don't know how they could like the matchup, or anyone just observing the Eagles at this point, and even the Bears and then the Vikings. And if you have your pick, if you have an opportunity to get your pick, you would think that would be a pretty straightforward answer. But nonetheless, a gift from the Chicago Bear gods. And here are the Eagles now. At least me, the unthinkable has happened with them getting into the playoffs, especially when Carson goes down. I feel like I'm reliving last year all over again. I mean, I tweeted out, it's happening again, because at this point, what the heck do I know? What the heck does anyone know? This team is special, and they're playing well on all cylinders. You wrote an article that's up on 973ESPN.com. I want to get into, obviously, everything from yesterday, but the most concerning thing, everyone took a big deep breath in when Nick Foles went down, and you posted Eagles get good news on Nick Foles. So let's start off with the Nick Foles update.
Well, he's got bruised ribs, so it's not very serious, and he is going to be a starter. I'm a little surprised Doug confirmed that at his press conference today. I thought he would go the competitive advantage route we saw so many times during the season. But he's not even going to bother.
I don't think he has the energy to do that anymore.
Which is, obviously the Bears were going to prepare for Nick Foles anyway, so he didn't do the tap dance with that. So that's the good news, and they expect Nick Foles to be ready to practice and have his normal amounts of reps. The Eagles are going to continue what they did late in the season. They're going to have a walkthrough on Wednesday, a full practice on Thursday. So they're trying to keep the guys as fresh as possible for Sunday. And that's what's worked for them, so you kind of understand it. And you're right about Nick Foles. I mean, it is unbelievable. We've gotten to the point where this guy's setting records every week. And against Houston, it was the franchise record for passing yardage. Against the Redskins, he ties the NFL record with 25 straight completions. Should have had it. Bad pass to Nelson Aguilar would have been 26. And then he turns right back around. Same play, goes right back to Nelson Aguilar for a touchdown. Now, people will point out a lot of that was underneath stuff, easy completions against a team that kind of cashed in their chips for the year. There's no doubt about it, but you got to give Nick Foles credit. He's playing at a tremendously high level. He's playing with such confidence. And this, again, harkens back to the Bears and what they're thinking. You got the reigning Super Bowl MVP who's pulling rabbits out of hats again.
Yep.
And you have Mitchell Trubisky who's never played in a playoff game. And Jim Schwartz is going to be throwing exotic coverages at him all day. I don't like it.
Yep.
From a Bears perspective. From an Eagles perspective.
Exactly. You love it.
I love it.
Yeah, and for the people out there that are saying, oh, well, it's the Redskins and it's checkdowns. Listen, 25 straight in the NFL. I don't care if it's me, you, Mike Gill, Josh, and 7 others on the other defense. You're going to make a mistake or there's going to be a miscommunication at some point. To get 25 in a row, that's absolutely – it's unbelievable. The guy just continues to shock me and everyone else. And the vibe that I get from the fans and the city at this point, it's just like I said a couple minutes ago, I just feel like it's happening again. I really do.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, we've gotten to the point where Carson Wentz is an afterthought, and
Yep.
I kind of feel sorry for
I do too.
Carson Wentz. But you're right on that 25 to 25. I mean, if you're at 7-on-7s in practice where you're supposed to complete passes, you're not going to get 25 out of 25. So spin it any way you want. That's very impressive, even
really
against
is.
that team. And there's a reason. Only two other guys have done it. It is easier to do it in this modern era. Phillip Rivers is one of them who did it earlier this season. But there's still not many people that have been able to do it.
No.
So you have to give him credit for that. He's not only winning football games, and that one yesterday, you can kind of throw it out. It wasn't really a game with Josh Johnson, but also remember this guy went on the road and beat the LA Rams.
Yeah.
He beat the Houston Texans. Those are both double-digit win teams. Those are both division champions. One's got a bye. It's been amazing, and I understand why people are buying in. It's going to be much more difficult this time because you got to go on the road. But nothing Nick Foles does at this point surprises me any longer.
No, me either. And I joked with Josh. I got here around like 3:45, and before you came on, I was telling him it's like, no disrespect to the John McMullens of the world or the Jeff Moshers of the world, but it's like it's beyond.
Well, you can disrespect Mosher.
Yeah, well, I'll disrespect him. Obviously, not you. But the point is, I'm over the analysis at this point. I'm over the inside information because it's like everything that I've seen with this team, particularly when Nick Foles is in, no one can predict or expect or give you the insight of what he's about to do. Because anyone with knowledge of this sport can break down when he enters the lineup and give you a very sound assessment of what you expect for the upcoming game, this and that. And he shuts everyone up. And I'm not saying he's shutting you up in particular. My point is he's just been so special.
He has.
Yeah, and he has. It's just amazing.
And that's what I just, kind of said. I give him credit because I've been one of those people. And I'll be honest, you wait for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
And I continue to wait for the other shoe to drop. And who knows? It might drop in 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
Who knows? All you can do is report on what you see and what you hear.
Yeah.
And it's obvious. Look, people can believe this. They don't have to believe it. I mean, I always ask people if they want to be lied to. The Philadelphia Eagles believe Carson Wentz is their longtime franchise quarterback. That has not changed. That will not change. They are in this unique situation, and there's really no other example to compare it to. People can bring up Jeff Hostetler back in the day, but that was not even remotely compared to this.
You can't disrespect Foles with Jeff Hostetler.
Yeah.
It's gotten to that point.
Because at the level that he's played at, look, anybody who sits there and says, "Oh yeah, I knew Nick Foles was going to outdo Tom Brady in the Super Bowl."
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Anybody who said he's going to go in against the number one defense in the NFL last year in the NFC Championship game and tear him to shreds. I mean, well, if you thought that, you don't know much about football.
Yeah, you're off your rocker.
But what you said, Ryan, is true. He keeps doing things against these teams. Nobody, and I will include this fan base, because last year, obviously, the Eagles were a tremendous team, 13 wins, number one seed. Everybody knew they were a good team. This year, it's been much more difficult. They sneak into the playoffs on the last day of the season, and if you go back to that Rams game, nobody in this fan base thought the Eagles would be able to beat the Rams on the road.
No, never.
No. And not many thought they were going to be able to beat a Texans team that had won 10 of 11 coming into Lincoln Financial Field. Guy continues to amaze.
He really does. And now I'm going to ask a follow-up that contradicts everything I just said previously. But in your opinion, what's the reason for all this? Like, what have you seen that it's just a switch that flips when he enters the game, and week after week we see more and more special play from this guy and the entire team, and it filters over to the defense, to the special teams. Like, this team was a completely different team with Carson Wentz. I know he had a lot of injuries, right? That's the obvious answer. But what have you seen with Nick Foles and this team since he's entered this lineup?
Well, I think Doug has done a better job of game planning, him and Mike Rowe, a better job of play calling. And Doug has admitted he and Nick Foles are sort of on the same page more than he and Carson because he has a much longer history with Nick Foles. So they know each other a little bit better. I think the second part is the way they are as players. And I've mentioned this before, Carson wants more autonomy at the line of scrimmage, and Nick Foles wants to be told what to do. And I think Doug is more comfortable with the latter. So that's number one. Number two, they talk about this all the time. Nick has a background as a basketball player as well as a point guard. He likes to distribute the football. He likes to let other people make the plays and get rid of the football quickly. So he's not trying to extend plays. He's not trying to do too much. And the football's out of his hands quickly. I think that's part of it. And then the other issues defensively, you talk about bad luck, and I don't know if that's the proper term, because Carson Wentz is a member of the Eagles, and he should be excited that they're making this run as well, but he is a human being, and there is human nature. You talk about that defense. Carson was the one out there in the dark days of Chandon Sullivan and Devontae Ballsby and Crevan LeBlanc when he first got here and barely knew the defense. And all of a sudden, Nick gets in there, and Avonte Maddox is back, and they put him outside, and he's playing well. Rasul Douglas gained some confidence. He's playing better, and LeBlanc has been here and sort of solidified the nickel position. Jordan Hicks comes back from injury. So all of that kind of happens at the same time. And I think, hey, you can give Nick Foles. I just gave Nick Foles credit for a lot of things. Yeah. But Nick Foles has been on the good end of having Avonte Maddox. I think that's one of the underreported stories of late this season, just how good Maddox has been on the outside as a corner and how much it's helped that defense.
Completely agree. I said that with Josh before you came on as well. I said, listen, Gil and I know you've been involved in the conversations as well on your Countdown to Kickoff show and, Krause McMullen show and Mosher, the defense versus offense conversation / debate that took place really for a majority of this season. But for me, ever since that New Orleans game, this Eagles defense has completely turned it around. I mean, Michael Bennett has been a much better rushing the passer player for them on the D-line. They've been tackling better. They've been playing the run better. You've mentioned Rasul Douglas and Avonte Maddox. And the big thing for me, John, turnovers. 9 in the last 6, and then they only had 7 in the first 10. You turn the other team over and you tackle better, you're going to give yourself a better chance, right?
Well, yeah, and there's no doubt about it. They have been more opportunistic, but that's also relates back to getting some of the talent back. And the fact that I got news for you. If Sullivan and Ballsby were still out there, this team would have been losing games. They wouldn't be in the playoffs. And there's a reason both of those guys were cut on Christmas Eve. The Grinch of all roster moves. But that's how bad they were. That's how bad they were performing. All of a sudden, Avonte Maddox gets back, and to be honest, there's a little luck involved there because nobody wants a 5'9" guy playing outside. The Eagles only put him out there because they were forced to. and they had nobody else. And then they go, oh, my God, he's playing really well. Let's leave him out there.
Yeah.
And then Rasul Douglas, it really comes back to that first Redskins game. If you remember that sort of trickery they tried, the throwback pass to Chris Thompson that was going to go for about 30, 40 yards at least. There was one guy who could make that play, and it was Rasul Douglas, and he undercut Trent Williams, one of the best tackles in this league. And you can see his confidence growing from that very play. Not the greatest in press coverage, but he's got great ball skills, leads his team in interceptions. They've been much improved at corner.
They really have, and it's been night and day, and it doesn't hurt when you get your guys back, like you said. John McMullen with us. Follow him on Twitter at JFMcMullen, longtime national columnist for the NFL. Our 97.3 ESPN Eagles Insider with us every day, Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. So, John, it's a day after the Redskins game now, and we're looking forward already to the Eagles-Bears matchup. So I'm going to ask you already here on a Monday, what's your one key? What's the biggest key for this Eagles-Bear matchup? Is it the Eagles' defense? Is it your favorite thing here, balance on the offense? What is this one key that doesn't involve Nick Foles for this game?
Well, the one, and Scott Grayson can tell you this because we carpooled down from Delaware, and I told him before the game even started, I said, if the Bears are dumb enough to go win this game against the Vikings, they're going to lose to the Eagles in the first round of the playoffs. Before the game even kicked off. And that, to me, is the key. The key is already done. The Bears made their mistake. And it's Nick Foles against a first-time quarterback. It's Mitchell Trubisky against Jim Schwartz. It's Doug Pederson against Matt Nagy as far as being the Andy Reid acolytes. Peterson's been doing it longer. This is not a good matchup for the Bears.
I love it, man, and I hope you're right, as you often are. So it's going to be a good one, and we'll be talking to you much more throughout the week, leading up to Eagles versus Bears in Chi-Town. Can't wait. Hopefully the Nick Foles ribs are nice and numb for St. Nick there that day. John, thank you as always joining us here on New Year's Eve. I hope you have a safe and happy New Year's Eve into your New Year's Day. For anyone out there, John will be having bottle service tonight in Atlantic City, bringing in the new year. So, John, thanks, man. We appreciate it.
Unfortunately, I got to be at press con. The Eagles ruined it. I would have been doing that, but now I have to work.
Now you have to work, man. It stinks. Yeah. All right, John. Thanks,
Happy
man.
New Year, guys.